And can I say, Thai Pongal Vaitukal to everyone here. I hope you're having a happy Pongal and celebrating it with your family and community. It's great that this year we've seen the London Assembly declare that this January should be Tamil Heritage Month, following on from what had happened in Canada. And I'm pleased to tell you that today in Parliament, I put down a motion so that we can formally recognise January as Tamil Heritage Month. And I'm sure it will attract support from across parties. I think it's really important that we do. British Tamils play such a great role in our community, whether it's during the pandemic when we've seen frontline workers, doctors, nurses, care workers, other key workers, researchers who've helped contribute to the AstraZeneca vaccine, for example. So it's really important that we take that moment to celebrate the role of the Tamil community and indeed Tamil culture, as we just heard from Sita. I've been very proud to go for the last 22 years, I think, to Kingston's Institute for Tamil Culture to see young people learning Tamil language, Tamil musical instruments, Tamil dance, and always found it wonderfully enjoyable. And I think if we can have Tamil Heritage Month more widely celebrated, I think more people can enjoy the amazing Tamil culture. It's particularly relevant to me because one of my constituents who sadly died during the pandemic, the late Dr. Anton Sebastian Pillai, he was a NHS consultant, and he actually died because he went back to help. He'd been retired. But he wasn't just an amazing NHS consultant, he was a historian. And he published in 2014 the complete illustrated history of Sri Lanka, which charts the Tamil people and their origins on the island of Sri Lanka. And I think it's an incredibly important work for Tamil people, as well as one of my constituents and indeed one of my late friends. And it was real sad, actually, that his son, Kevin Sebastian Pillai, messaged me last week to say how sad he was because his father had actually been buried on his funeral, I should say, was on the 20th of May 2020. So I do think it's really important that we celebrate people like Dr. Sebastian Pillai and so many others who contributed so much. And I think this month would enable that to happen. I have to say, I can't make a contribution to an event like this without recalling the many struggles, the ongoing struggles that we have for justice for Tamil people in Sri Lanka, not just on behalf of British Tamils, but the whole whole Tamil diaspora worldwide, as well as, of course, the Tamil people in Sri Lanka themselves. 13 years has passed since the end of the armed ethnic conflict, and those responsible for the atrocities in Sri Lanka are back in power, and the UN continues to report of a worsening rights situation with continued ethnic discrimination in Sri Lanka. The situation is as bad as ever. And then the Sri Lankan government reneging from the UNHRC resolution 30/1 is completely unacceptable. I know there was some progress in Geneva last March. I really think the British government has failed to respond to the calls from the Tamil community, the international NGOs, and the UN3 for increased bilateral pressure on Sri Lanka. We need to see those Magnitsky-style sanctions on accused Sri Lankan war criminals actually implemented. There's no point talking about them, no point passing them, no point warm words. The US State Department has already done that, and we should ensure that those sanctions are put on those individuals. We need to use every tool at our disposal to bring people to account. And here's one that we have, and it's been way too slow in applying that tool. I also think when we talk about trade deals and so on, we need to revisit the UK's trade relationship with Sri Lanka. When I was trade minister back in 2010 to 2012, there was a debate in the UK, we were then in the EU, about whether we should restart the GSP plus trade concessions from the UK and the EU to Sri Lanka. I said absolutely not. Those trade concessions were taken away because of the actions of the Colombo government. They are still in breach of so many international obligations that there's no way they should be given, and I stopped that happening. It was a huge regret to see a few years later, I think it was in 2016, that the UK and the EU gave back those trade concessions to Sri Lankan government, even though it was still in breach of many international agreements, which was supposed to have been adhered to for it to get those trade concessions. So that was a really backward step back then. I wasn't an MP at the time, so I couldn't make my voice heard, but it was a really bad mistake. I'm delighted to see last June that the EU is reviewing that and may well take them away. And I think it's really important the UK shows some leadership on that, and doesn't shy away from taking these sorts of measures. So whether it's the Magnitsky sanctions on individuals or the trade concessions, we do have things that the UK government can do. It doesn't have to wait. And I really hope we'll see some more leadership on this, because we need it. It's not just the critical issue of getting justice for what happened. We do need that international investigation mechanism, so the atrocities, the genocides that have been committed can be looked at and people held to account. We need to fight for that political solution to the continuing ethnic conflict, frankly. And not just as the Kingston Surbiton MP, but also as the leader of the Liberal Democrats, I want to make it clear that we will continue to support, as we have done over so many years now, the efforts of the Tamil people in this regard. And whether it's our calls on the Sri Lankan government to demilitarize the Tamil homeland in the northeast of the island, whether it's for the international accountability mechanism, whether it's for that political solution, we will work with you, British Tamil Forum and others, to make sure we get that justice that is so needed, so deserved. So I'm delighted we can come together to celebrate Thai Pongal. So thank you for inviting me. Vanakkam Nandri.